Okay, so this is the final video for this African safari. This is going to cover the last day plus the last little day and a half, which was a travel day for us. So here you can see kind of where we're driving around on the final day where we did, the morning drive and the evening drive. Um, this next picture is the little half day that I just included with this because we're leaving the airstrip from Lediba, um, going to the Mon International Airport, which is the big airport in Botswana, onto South Africa. So in yesterday's video, I was mind blanking on the national park that Lediba is in, and it's the Moremi Game Reserve. So that's the park, if you will, that it's a part of. And then from South Africa, we left on that half day going to Switzerland. We felt like we needed to kind of stay in Switzerland for a little bit to kind of, you know, digest everything that we had seen in Africa. So this was our last morning game drive. The sunrises and sunsets were just extraordinary. I don't even know if my pictures do them any justice, in all honesty. And on this day, on the morning drive, we were following this group of female lionesses. There were four of them, and I think there were three cubs. And we were following them for quite some time. You see here that there were several vehicles around these girls, and they were just seemed fine with it. They were not disturbed by it at all. Didn't seem to be causing them any issues, really. Now eventually we're going to get to a hunt, and I'll describe that a little later here with these girls, but uh they're they're just kind of assessing things as we're going along, and we're going to follow them for a little while. You see that one back there walked a little bit, sat down. Eh, oh man. All right. So that one is walking towards the other. And you'll see here's the two walking, then follow them a little bit with the camera, but then I switch to the other two and a cub that's walking behind them. Pretty incredible. So now we're following them for a little bit. You hear the guides talking to each other. They are often talking to each other in their tribal languages. There's quite a few languages spoken in Africa, including English. Everyone learns English. Okay, so here's a couple of the lionesses and the cubs. Now, they have now spotted a group, a little herd of leshwe. That's those small reddish antelopes. They're not impala, but they're about the same size as an impala. So they see a group of leshwe off in the distance, and they're sort of sizing them up for maybe a breakfast meal. Now, these girls are sitting on this road for quite some time, kind of like this, just observing these leshwe off in the distance. And I know I have a photograph here of the leshwe. Okay, this one you can kind of see. So you see at the very tip top of this photograph, there's some leshwe off in the distance near the tree line, back in the back. Now, eventually, one of these lionesses is going to go over to this termite mound on the right-hand side of this photograph. And so one's going to take a position up there, and another one of these, I think this one right here, there's a tree that you can't see in this photograph that's to the left, and it's in this open area here. And so one's going to position herself at the tree. One is going to position herself at the termite mound. Then the other two are going to go around the tree line to try and triangulate somebody out, one of these Leshway out. And I think the idea was for them to try and get that Leshway to actually come back through these two so that they're triangulated. It didn't work out like that. But nonetheless, it was fascinating to watch. Now, when the lioness finally took off after one of these Leshway, it happened so quickly. I didn't get a video of that, but the preparations for this, got quite a few pictures of it. All right, so you see this tree on the left. That's where one took up a position, and the other one took up a position next to the termite mound. And these are the cubs. We're just kind of hanging out, hoping for breakfast. So you can now kind of see, me panning through a little bit of kind of their strategy here. I might have another video that does that a little better. This is just looking at the whole group of them. There's a little cub. They just look very nonchalant, don't they? As they're thinking about attacking this Leshway herd. And again, that mouth is open. They're sniffing the air. It's fascinating to see. I've seen my house cat do that same thing. They're really cool. I loved watching the lions. That was definitely high on my list to see lions in the wild. Again, quite a few of these animals were quite surprising. So you see, let me go back a little bit on this video. Okay. So you see next to the termite mound is one of the lionesses kind of hunkered down in the tall grass there. Okay. And then you're going to see another lioness that has taken up her position next to the tree. Right there she is. Okay. And you see the Leshway off in the distance there, but they're much closer to him now. Right. The cubs are really not part of this, although that was a lovely yawn. I loved capturing the yawns of these cubs. Okay, so we're just watching them. They are all now in position. It wasn't too long after this that the chase was on. It was unsuccessful, but nonetheless, it was cool to watch them kind of take up their positions, kind of figure out what they wanted to do, etc. Now then they moved off to kind of one of the tree lines, just kind of hanging out, maybe getting a rest, with a few pictures of the landscape thrown in here. These are majestic girls. I mean, look at how muscular they are, how lean. You don't see lions looking like that in the zoo. Now, I have to say, my fascination with lions started when I was young. I used to go up to the zoo in Birmingham, Alabama. And I may have mentioned this on one of the videos, but I loved going to see the big cats, the leopard, the cheetah, the lions, etc. And in Alabama, it can get pretty hot in the summer. And so all of the big cats were in the building instead of outside. This is one of the cubs here. So anyway, they were inside and all of the big cats were making noise except for the big male lion. And he wanted everybody to shut up, including the people that were standing in there. There was probably about 20 or so people in this small little building. And this lion, this male lion, let out this roar in this room. And I thought I would never, ever hear another lion roaring ever. Although I did hear them several times while on safari. But he let out this roar, and I mean, it rattled the windows in this building. Every cat shut up and every person shut up. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I was probably, I don't know, between 12 and 14 years old, something like that. It was pretty amazing. And to see these uh, big cats in the wild is an amazing thing. I loved it. And she's walking right there in front of our vehicle. She'd look over, but just kept walking. I was not only taking video kind of the landscape there, but of these lions walking by. They were all kind of headed over to this spot where that one lioness was laying down, and they all just kind of huddled in the shade. So they're all kind of regrouping. They're probably going to try a hunt later, maybe. It's one of the cubs following along. The little cub walking by. I think the littlest cub is in this video. Oh yeah, and we're about to move. There's the littlest one. Okay. And so now they're all just hanging out in the shade. Now, it was right about this time we were kind of heading back towards the camp. After watching these lionesses, we sat and watched them for quite some time and followed them around. I asked the guide, I said, okay, I've been on safaris now for several days, and how in the world are you telling people where the animals are if they don't have a tracking device and you can't see them specifically, like a dot, and know where they are? How are you telling other guides where they are? Because I heard him on the way back. I knew he was most likely explaining to another driver and guide that where these lionesses were. And I said, because there are no road signs that I can see in any of the national parks or these game reserves. And he said, well, we know the terrain pretty well. So, for example, a lot of these game reserves or national parks will have campgrounds in them, so we know there's a campground number 1, number 2, number 3, maybe. Um, so a lot of times we can give a position to maybe a campsite or a watering hole, or something like that, some feature that doesn't really change all that much. So he said, I just told this guide that the lionesses are near campground number 3, follow the road, probably just one road from that campground number 3, around the tree line, and you should be able to find them, right? So that's about as close as they can get to describing where animals are. Okay. So, yeah. So you see when they turned on that vehicle, that little one was like, what was that? But they're snoozing, taking naps. Big sigh. Okay, and here's another one of these bridges. Now this one's flatter. That other one had kind of a curve to it. as we were going over it. This one is flat, but same kind of construction, built with these runners on it, you know. Uh, but they would go fairly slowly over that. Now this one is the curved one, it's the same one from the other day. This was a day where we had our lunch outside. It was gorgeous. Loved it. It was under this tree canopy, and there was a wide field out to the next of us. It was a beautiful day for that. Gorgeous. Now this is the Lediba camp. This is walking down from the main tent. So this is up off the ground a little bit. It's a walkway that's built back there. And so I'm just kind of following this around because we followed this path to get to the tent. And so then we walked on sand for a little bit and turned this corner to tent number 1. And that was our tent. It's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, it's built up off the ground. This one is built up off the ground, but you still see it's kind of that hard or heavy canvas, right? This was the deck. It's a beautiful deck with the hammock there and a sitting area. And again, off on the left-hand side there was the river. This was kind of the entrance into the tent. That was to the left. So you can see it's pretty open. There was a little bathroom in there. It was just a beautiful tent. These are luxury tents, right? So this is the kind of darker tin. That is the inside shower. And to the left of the picture, or to the right, if you're standing there next to that darker tin, that's the outside shower. Now, I did use that on the very last day. So the following day, which is included in this video, I did take a shower, but the outside shower because we were leaving a little later in the morning. And so it wasn't dark, trying to take a shower. It was kind of cool doing a shower outside. Now, this, I wanted to capture this because they had these little squirrels. This squirrel is probably not much bigger than a chipmunk. It's not nearly as big as your typical US squirrel, but he is chattering quite a bit. I don't know if it's a he or she, but they are often warning that there's something around, like a snake or something. Like when we were in Linyanti in Botswana, the camp previous to this, one of these little squirrels was going off in one of the trees, and it turned out there was a cobra nearby. So it was kind of like, okay, I'm not going outside right now. I am very aware of the fact that these animals can often alert to things around, So even though I don't understand squirrel, I can understand the behavior a little bit. So we were just hanging out in the tent before we went out for the evening game drive. Now, my evening game drive was not your typical kind of game drive. I took a Makoro canoe ride. Okay, so these channels of the river, they swear are safe, and that there are no crocodiles, and because it's shallower water and all that. Uh, there's no guarantee there's no hippos, I would bet, but I wanted to do it. I mean, because when am I going to be in Africa again? Most likely. I mean, it takes a bit of an investment to do a trip there, but it's well worth it. So this Makoro is a replica of a Makoro canoe. And they kind of work it kind of like the gondolas or the boats that are in Venice. So they have a long pole where they push along the bottom of the channel. So it's really quiet, It's not like your regular US canoe where you're splashing water with a canoe paddle. So that long pole, the guy's in the back, and he's just kind of pushing us along this channel on the river. But it was a beautiful evening, and I think you're just going to love the reflections of the foliage in the water. And in fact, we did run across some elephants, which later on is really sort of unnerving in a canoe because they didn't necessarily like that we were there and we weren't the only canoe. And they were trying to go back across the river channel. But this was beautiful. This was just a beautiful little canoe ride in this. You look at how still the water is and the reflections on the water. It was just beautiful. Okay, and these little water lilies or whatever they're called there, and the lily pads and the tall grass. Of course, an elephant had uh, died on the bank there. And that's probably been a while ago because there's not much left, just bones and everything. Um, and just look how beautiful that is. The leadwood tree. Okay. Now this little bird is a bee eater. It's teeny tiny little bird, very colorful. Um, and I got a couple of good photographs of this little teeny tiny bird. So the guide who took me on this, he said, this particular flower, I don't remember what it's called, but that sac has water in it. And he said that the tribal people, the people that live around there, have used this in the past as water drops for eyes, like if you get sand in your eyes. So you see that little drop of water falling out there, you know. So I got to play around with that little plant, to kind of see how that worked and everything. But he said they used it basically for how we use saline solution. So here's the elephants that had gone out on this little island, to have lunch or whatever. And they were starting to try and make their way back across. And they weren't too thrilled because there might have been maybe 5 or 6 canoes out on the channel as they were trying to come back across. And they weren't terribly happy about it. So it's really kind of unnerving to be at that level, you know, uh, because when I was riding in the vehicle, I'm up a little bit, it's kind of a graduated seating level and all, and you're right down there with these animals. So that one in the front shook his head a couple of times. Uh, so you could kind of tell he wasn't terribly happy that people were so close. But pretty cool to see them in a canoe. So you can tell it's not really terribly deep here, which I can kind of understand why a crocodile might not be there. But I saw many a time in shallow water that hippos like that, so they kept assuring me it was safe and all that. It was fine, but I don't think I believed them about the hippos. But okay. Maybe because, traffic is out on the channels a little bit more. Maybe that's what keeps the hippos away. I don't know. You can see those tusks are not white. They use those tusks a lot for digging and scraping trees and various things like that. That one's drinking water. It was really a lovely experience to go out on the river channel. And you can hear how quiet it is. And these guides apparently been doing traveling like this a lot. They said that, historically, their tribes, this is kind of how they traveled, how they got around. He also made me a necklace out of one of the water lilies. Uh, and so I thought that was pretty cool that he did that. Right? I mean, it's so pretty. Those nests are used by various different kinds of birds, you know, and one type of bird may leave it and another bird takes its place. It's like a bird condo, in a way. People come and go, or birds come and go, living in those. All right, so you see the Jeeps kind of over the vehicles are Toyotas really, but they're over on the left-hand side that we're coming back to the dock after having been out on this little channel for about an hour or so, passing by the remains of that elephant. And here, this was just some of the photos. Now, this particular termite mound I thought was kind of interesting. It was one of the tallest that I saw. And maybe it was because it was so close to a water source. I don't know for sure, but I mean, look at it compared to that tree. It was huge. I'm not even sure that it's a live termite mound, but that is a tall structure. It's one of the tallest I've seen. Now, the termite mounds had different colors to them. Some of that is due to the soil content and how much minerals are in it and stuff like that. Plus, if it's a dead termite mound, it definitely doesn't have any color to it. I just loved these photos here of the sun kind of streaming through the trees and the water and everything. I thought it was pretty nice. That's a pretty good one. So we had our sundowner here, having our uh, drinks and snacks and stuff like that. That was the little place where I got into the canoe on that little ramp. And this is the road back to the camp. And this is what a lot of roads look like. So you've seen the safari roads that are just kind of the two, where you see the wheels going. But this is an actual highway, that we're riding on going back to the camp. Uh, and even along here, you can see animals, they can walk out in front of you. You have to be watching. You can't just, zone out, you know, um, because animals can be anywhere and surprise you. The landscape there had a really nice purple hue to the evening, this evening, in the sky for the sunset. This was the main tent. In fact, that area off to the right there, there's a oven right back behind there. We made pizzas one night. We didn't do that this. Oh, maybe we did. It might have been pizza night. I can't remember which night that was, but that was a lot of fun doing that. And the main tent for the evening, because this was our last evening on safari. We were so sad. Okay. And our tent, just a few more pictures of that. Now, this was the morning. This was when we were leaving. And another picture of the outdoor shower. Um, and on the way out, we saw some of the water bucks, the one that have the white ring on the butt. Plus, we got to see the national bird of Botswana, which is the bustard. Okay, that's a big bird right there. He's a pretty big dude. All right. So anyway, that was the end of our safari. So I hope what I've been able to do with this series of videos is to show you that yes, while the animals are amazing, incredible, there is nothing like being able to see them and hear them from your tent, and to see them in your vehicle. That is amazing. But I wanted for people to be able to see some of the other stuff that's often not videotaped. The traveling from and to, the describing how the people are, like that particular evening, our last evening in Lediba, our hosts, the African people of that area, were feasted us to singing and dancing. They full throated. Everybody participates. They love to sing. They love to dance. They're very welcoming. So every time we'd go out on a safari, as we went out, we'd get a water bottle. Or often early in the morning, we had our little bush babies with us, and blankets and all that kind of stuff. And they fed us all day long, And when we'd get back, we always had a warm towel or a cool towel, depending on how hot it was or how cool it was, to wash our face and hands. Often had a drink waiting for us, maybe a tea or something. It was just incredible. So if you have the opportunity to go to Africa, please go. Plan for it. Even if you have to do a 10-year plan where you save up some money to go, please do. It is beyond anything that you can imagine to experience it yourself. Okay. To like in Lediba, for example, as we were driving out to the airstrip, one of the things that you can't bottle is that smell, the smell of Africa. Because often very different kinds of flowers, particularly in Lediba, they had wild sage growing on the road that we went out. And so this wafting of wild sage was just everywhere in the air. It was amazing, you know? So please go. We toured Africa with African bush camps. Each of the camps that we were at was an African bush camps location. And the company that we went through to book it all was Africa Dynamics. They're based in Bellevue, Washington. They have a website, so just look up Africa Dynamics, Bellevue, Washington, and you will find them. Talk to Serafina. Okay. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to share this mega adventure with you, and I hope you go on safari someday. Thanks. Bye.